On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla Unofficial Podcast, the Cybertruck gets a massive software update that adds a ton of new features. I'll give you my first impressions of the new Model 3 Performance, more terrible Tesla layoff news as the entire 500-person Supercharging team gets dismissed, and more. What's happening, friends? I'm Ryan McCaffrey, joining you for episode 457 of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla Unofficial Podcast, coming at you every single Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. This episode is for May 5th, 2024. Daisy the Boxer hanging out to me, next to me on my left, looking out the window as she likes to do if she's not already sleeping. And I want to get started with, well, lots. There's plenty to get to on this week's show, and I'll start here with a bit of a public service announcement. Takeover, the largest Tesla owners event of 2024, is happening this summer, July 27th and 28th in San Luis Obispo, California. This is the same event, same location as it was last year, which I was lucky enough to be invited to as a guest speaker, and they are once again putting it on. This is the Tesla Owners Club of Silicon Valley that spearheads this. They did a great job last year. This event continues to grow. They mentioned that there will be content sessions hosted by Tesla influencers. Hint, hint. I may or may not be there. I will be. I'll be there. There will be a super modified and customized Tesla contest. Over 65 exhibitors displaying the best Tesla accessories on the market, a scenic ride and drive across the central coast of California, a showcase of unique Cybertrucks and EVs, a kid zone, local food trucks, and so much more. And we would love for you, this is we, they're messaging here, we would love for you to visit the booth and say hello, stop by. To celebrate this year's keynote speakers, we've got a big one. I can't wait to be a part of this. And by a part, I mean I'm just in the audience. I'm not hosting this. I wish I was, but the keynote speaker is Tesla's chief designer, Franz von Holzhausen, friend of Ride the Lightning, and also astronaut Jared Isaacman as well. There is a special offer if you're interested in attending this, coming on out to California. Use the promo code CYBER10 to get 10% off the registration fee. Register now to secure your tickets at xtakeover2024.eventbrite.com. I should mention there will also be a Ride the Lightning listener meetup there as well. I just need to figure out the best time for it, but it's likely to be on Saturday, sometime on Saturday, which is day one of the event. So I hope you can join in. Would love to see you there. All right, with that out of the way, let's get rolling with this week's news. I will start with not news per se, but, well, something hopefully that you'll find interesting. My first impressions of the new Model 3 Performance. So a couple of San Francisco Bay Area showrooms have them, so I took a ride down to go see it. There are pics on my Instagram, which is DMC_Ryan, if you're interested in seeing those pictures. Quite frankly, it's nothing you haven't seen before if you've already been looking at pictures of it, but they're there if you're interested. There are no test drives yet, sadly, so this is simply a first impression of seeing the car in person for the first time, the fit and finish, and I want to talk about the new sport seats that are unique to the Model 3 Performance relative to the other Model 3s as well. I'll start with the outside. So the air channels that are on the lower front fascia that are, again, unique to the Performance Model 3, they really finish the front end nicely, in my humble opinion. I think it looks a lot better. Not that the regular 3 Fresh looks bad, not at all, but the Model 3 Performance with those extra air channel, those air inlets, I think it just really looks extra good. It really takes it to the next level. Looks a little sportier. Quite frankly, it looks a little more complete in the sense of, instead of just a kind of a flat, uninterrupted fascia down there, you've got some design, some style element going on, and I really like it. Now, as to the fit and finish on this particular pre-production model that was sitting in the showroom, I will say it appears to be, at first glance and first impression, leagues beyond my first run 2018 Model 3 performance. And quite frankly, it's not even close. The trunk, like I open that up and just everything in there, and the fact that, I mean, yes, it's powered on this one as it has been on the for the last few years of Model 3, and mine isn't powered. But even just like inside there, just all the little things are just better in terms of the fit and finish of this car. Yes, panel alignment is great. I mean, it's mostly good on my car. There are a couple little spots that aren't ideal, but it looks like Tesla has been making Model 3s for 6 years, 7 years at this point, because it just really seems to be dialed in on this, at least this particular Model 3 performance. I mean, I would say that my car, I'm not trying to poo-poo my own car. My car is very nice. It's got a few little annoyances, but it's just more of an overall feeling of, for lack of a better word, although maybe this word works, the new Model 3 performance just feels more solid. It feels more solid and better put together than my car does, as Daisy the Boxer takes a drink behind me, if you're hearing that. Next, I want to talk about the big thing I can tell you about without driving the car, because that's obviously going to be the most important thing is driving it, but the seats. These new custom sport seats, they are approximately 3 orders of magnitude better than the seats in my car, which means better than the seats in any original version 1 Model 3 from 2018 to 2023, or excuse me, 2017 to 2023. And that's, again, I'm not attacking, I'm not speaking ill of the seats that are in my car. They're good, they're comfortable, I like them, but these sport seats in the new Model 3 Performance are just awesome. Like, as soon as you plop down in them, you can tell right away, just the feel of them, the ergonomics of them. They've, of course, got ventilation for cooling, which the old Model 3s don't. Seat heating, which I didn't try. I did turn the cooling on. I didn't bother with the seat heater. I know what that feels like. But just the bolsters with the way it hugs you, it's not too tight, but it's still plush and comfortable. It really seems to strike a phenomenal balance between being a comfortable seat to spend time in and also a bolstered seat that'll keep you in place when you're throwing the car through the twisties on a canyon road, which hopefully I'll get a chance to find out whenever test drives start happening with this car. And it just kind of really crystallized for me something that has been true for a while, but that is Tesla has gotten really, really good at making seats, particularly over the last few years. I mean, it's been an evolution from the jump, because if you've been in the Tesla world for a while, you'll know that Tesla really started at the bottom of the seat world. I mean, even Elon himself has jokingly referred to the first-gen Model S seats as toadstools, and they've just gotten better and better as time has gone on, and this new Model 3 Performance seat is incredible. The seats in the new S and X are great, and I haven't even had a chance to try or even sit in the brand new seats for the Plaid S, but just even the regular seats in the long range S and X are great. The Cybertruck seats, I've spent plenty of time in those now, driving the Cybertruck for that 3-day weekend a couple months ago. The Cybertruck seats are great, and my wife agreed. And my wife she did not like, I've said this before, she doesn't like the way the headrest kind of meets her head and neck on the existing Model 3 seat. Like because a lot of times if we're driving back from somewhere, like a family function in the evening, she'll kind of want to rest her eyes and maybe take a little nap, which is great, but she can't get super comfortable with her neck doing that. And so when we had the Cybertruck for that 3-day weekend, I specifically asked her at the end of the 3 days, like, what did you think of the seats? And she's like, oh, they're really comfortable. She said they were definitely a step up from the seats in my car. So anyway, my point is to say that Tesla has just gotten really good at making seats. And because we know they've been making their own seats for quite a long time now, to the point that I wish I could get these new Model 3 Performance seats installed in my car. So, hey Tesla, if there's anybody from Tesla listening to this, can I do that? Can I just buy the seats? Can I pay the money? I would presume that there's no reason why they wouldn't fit, since the car is the same size. The new 3 is the same size as the old one. I wonder if anything's going to stop it. Maybe the wiring harness is different because it's got the ventilation function. But I'll just float it out there if anybody knows if the new Model 3 performance seats can go in the old Model 3. I'd love to do it, provided it's not too insanely expensive. Anyway, there you go. My first impressions just from a walk around and sitting in the new Model 3 Performance. Can't wait to drive it. Speaking of the new Model 3 Performance, it hasn't even been a week, and there's already been a price adjustment. The base price went up, sadly, by $1,000 from $53,000 to $54,000, or specifically $53,990. But one price did go down, and that was the price of white interior, which dropped by $500 from $1,500 down to $1,000. However, this is still a net negative in terms of the number of configuration choices that you now have if you still want to keep the car under the $55,000 MSRP limit to qualify for the $7,500 point of sale federal tax credit. In short, at the pricing as of this recording, you can now get white interior, but you can't choose any other paint color besides the default stealth gray that is free, that doesn't cost any extra money. At least last week, when the Model 3 Performance first went on sale, you could choose any paint color you wanted and still get the tax credit, even if you were stuck with black interior. So Tesla's effectively traded, well, I'm not even going to say traded. They've limited your choices now if you want to stay under that $55,000 limit. And I know that Tesla has its reasons for this stuff. And I have said many times on this podcast that I believe that, generally speaking, more often than not, they do the right thing by their customers. And I'm not saying this is wrong, because I don't pretend to know the economics of the Model 3 Performance and where they need to price it to have a successful vehicle in their lineup. But what I can definitively say is that this is just a real bummer. It's a bummer, because we're talking about $2,000 here. If they drop the price of this admittedly already extremely great value of a car by $2,000, then you could get any configuration you wanted and still have the new Model 3 Performance qualify for the full tax credit. But as I said last week, I know that Tesla's not running a charity here, but surely there's got to be some way for Tesla to play with the pricing on their side to at least give us more options on the new Performance 3 without going over that $55,000 limit. But for now, it would seem as though Tesla is probably going to be selling a whole lot of stealth gray Model 3 Performances with both black interior and white interior. Next up, another quick hit to start the podcast with here. Some folks with older Teslas that have the ultrasonic sensors on them can now look forward to trying out the new high-fidelity park assist. But unfortunately, the key word there is some folks. Tesla is now rolling out high-fidelity park assist and new auto park to cars with ultrasonic sensors in version 2024.3.25, which includes FSD supervised version 12.3.6. However, in order to use the high fidelity park assist on your ultrasonic sensor equipped car, you will need to have a car that has MCU3 in it, aka the AMD Ryzen chip in your center touchscreen. So that means it's only 2022 models and newer. So 2022s, 2023s although I'm trying to remember now if any 2023s had the ultrasonic sensors. I can't quite recall off the top of my head when those got phased out. But I did look it up and make sure it's the Ryzen chip went into the 2022 models. So that's the cutoff. If you've got a 2022 or later Tesla, then that has ultrasonic sensors, you should now be getting the high fidelity park assist. And it's a bummer now that those of us with MCU2, which is an older Intel Atom processor, we're out of luck, and it is a bummer. Now, it was bound to happen eventually, but those of us with those older Model 3s, like my 2018, we're finally starting to get left behind a little bit here. I can't really complain because for the first 5 years strong, we got every single update in our cars. And it's now these, once we've crossed this half-decade mark, starting to get left behind. The first thing that I remember being that my car couldn't get was the Zoom app, because you need MCU3, you need the Ryzen chip for that. Now it's this, and then next, which I already talked about 1 or 2 shows ago, I think it was last week, it's some stuff in the upcoming spring update we will not be getting in our older, I was going to say classic Model 3s and Model Ys. So all of you pre-refresh, so 2020 and earlier, S and X owners are probably sitting there thinking, well, welcome to the club of not getting every single feature that gets rolled out now. And, such is the forward march of tech and the double-edged sword of having computers on wheels, which is what these things are, what these cars are in part. But anyway, to those of you who are getting this new high-fidelity park assist in your car with ultrasonic sensors, go forth and park better, my Ryzen rocking friends. Enjoy. All right, next up, one more warm-up here. I want to say a thank you to listener Judson for forwarding me an email that he got from Tesla about a new used Tesla showroom that's opening in his area. Yes, it's all pre-owned cars. The email that Judson got that he forwarded along reads simply, join us today, as it so happens, not today, I'm saying today, May 5th. Join us on May 5th from 12 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. for the grand opening of our used Tesla Center in Kissimmee, so that's Florida. Browse our selection of used inventory and learn more about our vehicles, do-it-yourself service options, and Tesla energy products for your home. Tesla advisors will be available to answer any questions you may have. So this is an interesting strategy by Tesla, and if you ask me, a smart one, particularly now that you can get a point-of-sale tax credit for buying a used EV. I think it's a great way to get people in the door at a building where, because it's all pre-owned Teslas, the prices are going to be as low as they can be. They're obviously cheaper than ordering a new Tesla. So, as a bonus too, if you're in the market for a used Tesla, this way you can also go and see the car and inspect it yourself in person rather than just browsing a listing on the tesla.com/inventory website and hoping that there aren't any major scratches or any other, noticeable bits of cosmetic damage on the car as well. So if you're down in Florida, check that out if you're in the market for a pre-owned Tesla. Similarly, sorry, I guess I said there's one more and I was incorrect. I want to give another shout out to longtime listener James from the Bay Area for sending me this particular notice he got from Tesla about another consumer-facing initiative that the company is undertaking. The message reads, experience Model 3 or Model Y with a demo drive at our new self-serve location in Lathrop. Schedule your appointment, unlock your vehicle, and complete your demo drive all through the Tesla app. In-vehicle tutorials will show you how to operate your Tesla so you can get the most out of your drive. Once scheduled, a Tesla advisor will contact you to guide you through the self-serve demo drive process and answer any questions you have. So again, I think this seems like a smart initiative for Tesla, and also, honestly, super on brand for Tesla to make it as self-serve and minimalist of an experience as possible. But honestly, I think it seems like an efficient way to do test drives. The car will show you the basics of what to do, and then a human on the phone will be there to guide you through the rest. That seems pretty awesome to me. And I imagine that both this and the used car center in Florida are probably pilot programs that are going to get expanded if they prove successful. And I would guess that both of them probably will be, particularly as Tesla continues to scale up and get to the point where eventually you could go do Cybertruck test drives this way. I mean, who wouldn't want to go at least try the Cybertruck once supply catches up with demand, which admittedly won't be for a few years yet, along with, at some point in the not too distant future, you could go test drive the Model 2.5 this way as well. So, interesting initiatives here from Tesla. All right, before I get rolling with the main news topics this week, I wanted to mention that I hope all of you who are very kindly and generously giving back to the podcast by backing me on Patreon at that $10 per month tier or higher enjoyed this week's Lightning Round mini episode, which was about my favorite supercharging locations that I've been to so far. Obviously, I haven't been to nearly all of them or even remotely close, but I wanted to just talk about my favorite supercharging sites in light of the terrible news this week that you heard at the very top that I'll get into here in just a little while. As a reminder, anytime anyone is kind enough to join the Patreon at that $10 per month tier or higher, you will get access to all of the Lightning Round mini episodes. I do them every single week. There are now 94 of them up there, coming up on 100 of these. You can find out more on my Patreon page found at patreon.com/Tesla Podcast, with Patreon spelled Patreon. You can get a 10% discount if you'd like to pledge once for the entire year. That's my way of saying thank you. If you're kind enough to give a whole year of support, I'll give you 10% off. And if you'd just like to try it out, see what it's like to be a backer on Patreon with me, Patreon has recently enabled a 7-day free trial on that $10 per month tier. So again, all of that, plus all the other support tiers, all that information can be found at my Patreon page, which again is patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. Okay, let's talk about some good news before we get to the bad. The good here is a huge software update that has begun rolling out to Cybertruck owners now, which of course means once general production starts, all of us that buy Cybertrucks will have this in our trucks right on day one. So Tesla has added many things. I'm going to just read you the release notes because there's a lot in here. Starting with off-road mode. So overland mode gives you more consistent handling and better overall traction while driving on rock, gravel, deep snow, or sand. Baja mode. Vehicle balance is improved and the vehicle handles more freely when stability assist is set to minimal. Locking differentials on the dual motor version in off-road mode. On uneven or slippery terrain, if a wheel has limited or no traction, Cybertruck can direct that torque to the opposite wheel. In off-road mode, choose from locking differentials options on the vehicle status area or in the off-road app. Front locking differential specific to the Cyberbeast tri-motor. If you just go into off-road mode and overland to enable the locking diff feature there, Cyberbeast tri-motor has a virtual rear-locked differential, which is always working in overland mode since, of course, the tri-motor has two motors in the back, one per wheel already. Trail assist is part of off-road mode. Tesla says it's like cruise control, but for off-roading. Trail assist helps maintain a set cruising speed so you can focus on steering. Trail assist works as both a hill ascent and descent control, helping to keep the wheels from slipping. And then a slippery surface toggle as well. Better traction control on snowy, icy, wet, or slick roads to distribute traction evenly across all tires. Ride and handling with a load. Adaptive suspension now estimates payload more accurately and automatically adjusts damping to deliver a more comfortable ride and more consistent, confident handling. And finally, Cyber Tent mode. Levels the suspension so you can sleep comfortably on a flat surface in your Cyber Tent. Also keeps the tonneau cover open to accommodate your tent. Lights, AC, and outlets will stay on as well if enabled. So, all of this is to say that in my opinion, off-road mode, huge update unto itself. Certainly a big one for those Cybertruck owners, present and future, who want to take their truck off the pavement. The locking differential specifically, that's a huge part of that, with that feature being one that's really been hugely anticipated by off-roaders ever since the first deliveries of the Cybertruck, which, by the way, is now 5 months ago. It's been 5 months already since the first Cybertruck deliveries. Can you believe how fast that went? How quick that time passed? I can't. That just feels like I was just at that delivery event yesterday. Anyway, final point I want to make on this is just to it's a confession from me to you. I want to fully confess that I will probably never use any of this except for Cyber Tent mode, since I did promise my wife we'd go camping in the Cybertruck. But it is, forget about me, it's awesome that Tesla just continues to dial this stuff in. I mean, I feel like off-road mode for the Cybertruck, it's the truck equivalent of track mode on my Model 3 Performance, which I've also never used, even though I have taken it to the drag strip, but never the track. So love to see this in Cybertruck. The off-road capabilities have now leveled up for all present and future Cybertruck owners. Next up this week, Tesla's FSD approval in China. Yes, it's happened. It's a home run for the automaker, as the stock has struggled for most of the year. On the news, writes Teslarati, Tesla shares surged to start the week. CEO Elon Musk made his way to China to meet with high-ranking government officials, and the conglomeration resulted in what was one of the biggest bull signals for the company in recent memory, approval of FSD in the region. Chinese officials confirmed to the Wall Street Journal that Tesla's FSD suite has tentatively been approved, as it cleared several regulatory hurdles that have kept it from releasing in China for the past few years, one of which was mapping, and Tesla is utilizing Baidu for this, B-A-I-D-U. If I happen to be mispronouncing that, I apologize. Well, setting the stock piece of it aside, since, as all of you know, that's not really my specialty, although as a long-term shareholder, it's certainly nice to see the stock rebound a bit from the dip it took over the last couple months. This is obviously very significant because it marks the first time FSD has been approved for use outside of North America. My question now is whether or not there's any cultural difference between China and the US in terms of acceptance of driver assistance features. Meaning, are Chinese Tesla buyers any more or any less likely to use and purchase Autopilot and, by extension, FSD? I have to genuinely tell you, I have no idea. I don't know if they're going to be more or less likely to use it, or just it'll be a similar take rate as to what it is here. Then again, given the size of the Chinese car market, even if the take rate is comparatively lower than in the US, the revenue potential for Tesla on this is massive because of the sheer 8-figure population of people in China, which is no doubt why this news goosed the stock in the first place. Speaking of FSD, by the way, with the 1-month free trial having now ended for many of you here in the United States, I thought it would be a good time to ask you about your experience with that FSD free trial in this week's Patreon poll. Again, I thank a lot of you voted in this. Thank you so much. The poll is free. Anybody can vote on it. You don't have to be a Patreon backer. just visit patreon.com/Tesla Podcast every week. I typically post the new poll question on Tuesday evenings, and you can vote in that every week. So the poll question was simply, having now tried FSD version 12, what do you think? 43% of you said, I'm very impressed. 18% of you said, it's decent, but I don't feel like it lives up to the hype. 19% of you said, I haven't received the free trial yet, or I'm not interested in trying it. And then it tails off. 11% of you said, I like it on the highway, but not on city streets. And 6% of you said, I'm completely blown away. It's awesome. With 3% of you saying, I don't like it for whatever reason. Thank you very much again to all of you that kindly took the time to vote in this week's Patreon poll. And I'm going to pause right here because there's no good way to segue to bad news. I'm just going to give a quick pause to mention the kind folks at Accelerate Auto who continue to help bring you Ride the Lightning each and every week by sponsoring the podcast. So check them out. If you have a warranty that's expiring on your Tesla, if it's either already expired or coming up soon, and you plan on keeping the car for a while, and you're thinking about, well, do I want some sort of additional coverage here? Accelerate Auto and their X-Care plan is totally customizable for whatever works for you. If you just want to cover the battery and drivetrain, the most expensive components of the car, if anything goes wrong, that you can do that. You can just buy a battery and drivetrain policy from them. You could also cover the entire rest of the car, or you could cover the rest of the car without the battery and drivetrain. It's again, super customizable. That's really what they're trying to do with this is just give you as many choices as possible so that you can just get what works best for you. So check them out, see which policy is right for you at accelerateauto.com/xcare. That's XCELERATEAUTO.com/XCARE. And don't forget to use the discount code LIGHTNING for $100 off your purchase everywhere except Florida. Apologies to Florida. It's apparently a state law thing that they cannot give discounts or price warranties differently for different people. So $100 discount for most everybody on that. Check them out. All right, let's get to a thing that I sure don't want to talk about, this because I want to keep this podcast fun and enthusiastic, but there's no way to do that here, and I can't ignore this. I wouldn't ignore this. So here we go. I'm going to very, very unfortunately pivot to something I take absolutely zero pleasure in telling you about. Various sources have reported that, among other folks, and unfortunately a lot of other folks, some HR people, the entire summer internship program, and it goes on, but the folks I want to focus on here is the entire Supercharging team. From Senior Director of EV Charging, Rebecca Tanucci, all the way on down. Her entire team of 500 people have been laid off. This was such a shocking and devastating piece of news to hear about for Tesla owners this week, although I want to just, as a human being here, recognize my contextual use of the words shocking and devastating, because this was obviously far more shocking and devastating for the 500 people who have lost their jobs. So just to want to make sure I express that as a human being that's empathetic towards all these folks that are affected. But this was such a shocking and devastating thing for us on the owner side of the equation here that I had more people contact me, reach out to me about this story this week, about this piece of news, than I've ever had for any other Tesla thing during the week ever. Because, things will pop up and somebody will DM me on Instagram or email me or call in or what have you. And that's great. I do my best to stay on top of all the Tesla news, but as you've all heard plenty of times, including twice at the top of this show, sometimes you all are able to send me stuff I hadn't heard about, and I'll then talk about it on the podcast and share that news and analysis with you. And this, I had so many people just reach out, not even necessarily to share the news, but to just express their shock and horror at this. So, I don't know what to say. I had all week to write my notes here, and I still don't feel good about anything that I wrote, only because I don't know how to really talk about this in any sort of productive way, I guess. But I'll just work through the story and talk about the notes that the thoughts that I had, and we'll go from there. So if you have not heard about this already, number one, I apologize if I'm breaking this to you, because it's true. This is not hyperbole. It's not an exaggeration. The entire Supercharging team, 500 people, are laid off. They're gone. Here's the story via Reuters. Elon Musk has dismissed 2 Tesla senior executives and plans to lay off hundreds more employees, frustrated by falling sales and the pace of job cuts so far, The Information reported on this past week, citing the CEO's email to senior managers. Rebecca Tanucci, senior director of the electric vehicle maker's Supercharger business, and Daniel Ho, head of the new vehicles program, will leave on Tuesday morning, the report said. Musk also plans to dismiss everyone working for Tanucci and Ho, including the roughly 500 employees who work in the Supercharger group, The Information said. It was not clear how many employees worked for Ho. Tesla's public policy team, which was led by former executive Rohan Patel, will also be dissolved, the report said. Quote, hopefully these actions are making it clear that we need to be absolutely hardcore about headcount and cost reduction, Musk wrote in the email, the report said. While some on executive staff are taking this seriously, most are not yet doing so, end quote. So first, again, my empathy and support go out to everybody at Tesla that's affected by this. Second, while I don't at all for a second pretend to be smart enough to run Tesla, but speaking purely as a Tesla owner, I, and no doubt many of you, based on all the messages I got this week, are having a really tough time making sense of these moves, most notably the termination of the entire Supercharging team. It's so much institutional knowledge that's just gone in a flash, instantaneously, poof, goodbye. And beyond that, why would Tesla want to willingly walk away from Supercharger expansions and rollouts? Because above anything else, Supercharging is by far Tesla's biggest competitive advantage. There are other good EVs out there. We can name plenty of them. The Taycan, the Lucid Air, the Mustang Mach-E in its own, versus the Model Y. I'm not saying they're better, but they're good, right? I'm not just there are good EVs out there, but what's the big advantage that Tesla, you buy a Tesla, you are getting the Supercharger network. It is by far Tesla's biggest competitive advantage. It was such an advantage that literally, not exaggeration, no hyperbole, every other automaker had to just wave the white flag and say, all right, we'll just use your plug and your network. That's how impressive and ahead of the game that Tesla was and still is, with the Supercharging network. They're a full decade ahead of anyone else. A decade. Now, that said, the Supercharger network's by no means done, which is part of what bothers me about this move and what might bother you, because a lot of you wrote to me to tell me you were bothered by this. There is a lot more work to do on the Supercharging network for the health and success of not just Tesla, but the entire EV movement, particularly now that all the other automakers have hitched their wagon to it. So it's just, it's a little, I just can't make heads or tails of it. I can't. And again, I don't pretend to be as smart or smarter than the CEO, not by a long shot, but it's baffling. Now, for future Tesla owners who pay attention to this stuff, I have to figure that this doesn't instill a lot of confidence in potentially buying a Tesla when you read about a story like this. Now, it doesn't change the fact that the supercharging network is awesome right now. It is awesome at this very moment in time. But Tesla, they have big plans to continue to grow their fleet by a lot. And eventually, other automakers are going to up their EV production too. It's inevitable. So the network is by no means a finished product, and that's why I can't wrap my head around this. And, I guess I alluded to it a second ago, but if you're another automaker who just signed on to NACS, what are you thinking right now? Are you thinking that Tesla just left you holding the bag? I mean, maybe not. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here, but what are you thinking? If all these automakers just said, all right, we'll use the NACS plug. We'll adopt this North American charging standard. And then Tesla cans the entire team that works on this stuff. It can't make you feel good if you're another automaker that's just signed on to this. I mean, I suppose it's still better than the alternative, which is, CCS and Electrify America and all this, the seemingly not super reliable third party, or I should say non-Tesla network of chargers. But it's a head scratcher here. So, I mean, is Tesla in fact now counting on other automakers to invest in the supercharger network and do their part? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe Elon is sending a memo to all the other automaker CEOs. I don't know. But for his part, Elon did post to X about this week after this story broke, saying, quote, Tesla still plans to grow the supercharger network, just at a slower pace for new locations and more focus on 100% uptime and expansion of existing locations. He later added, sites under construction will be completed and we will add additional superchargers anywhere where there are gaps, end quote. Although he just said that they're not focusing on new locations so much. Again, I don't pretend to know the company or what's best for it better than Elon does, but hearing that they're going to grow the network at a slower pace is not what I want to hear as a Tesla owner. I talked about what are prospective future Tesla owners thinking? What are other automakers thinking? What are those of us who are Tesla owners now thinking? I mean, it again doesn't instill a ton of confidence. It's not what I want to hear, period. That's it. Now, there's nothing I can do about it, certainly. And again, to just repeat this, the supercharging network is pretty darn awesome right now. But as someone who plans to continue driving my current Tesla and my next one and the one after that for many decades, I'm pretty invested in the continued expansion of this thing, as I'm sure many of you are too. So maybe Elon's plan will become more clear in the coming weeks, but sadly, we just had the earnings call, so it's more likely than not that Elon will not have to face any direct questions about this for like 3 months. Maybe less if somebody gets a hold of him, but I'm sure this will come up on the next earnings call. But for the time being, all we can do is look at this and go, well, that happened. So again, my sympathies to everybody on the supercharging team that is no longer at Tesla. And I hope all of you are able to grab new, awesome next steps in your career very quickly, whether it's at another automaker or what have you. And that's it. There's no, I didn't know where to put this in the podcast. Like, do I do the bad news up front and then move to good stuff? Do I do it at the end? I ended up landing on the end. So I just, that seemed the least bad option for a story like this. So I'm going to take a quick little break here. We're going to hear from Franz von Holzhausen, as we always do every week. And then I will come back with your phone calls in the Ride the Lightning hotline right after this.
Hi, this is Franz von Holzhausen, and you're listening to Ride the Lightning with Ryan McCaffrey, the Tesla Unofficial Podcast.
Well, I've got to hold off on your calls for just a minute because late breaking news as I'm recording this. So I took a quick pause after that long news segment to gather myself, put in the little Franz bumper there as I do, and a text came in. I checked my phone. I got a text from a Tesla contact who just sent me this: new Model Y long-range rear-wheel drive available in the US and Puerto Rico. The email, the internal Tesla messaging reads, as of May 3rd, 2024, we launched a new long-range rear-wheel drive Model Y in the United States and Puerto Rico. Effective immediately, the long-range rear-wheel drive, with a range of 320 estimated miles, will replace the rear-wheel drive option on the Model Y configurator. Additionally, the price for the Model Y long-range rear-wheel drive trim will increase $2,000. So it's now $45 compared to $43 for what was the standard range. The recommended charging limit remains the same, 80% for both rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive Model Y. Our first customer deliveries are expected in early 2024. And let me just double check. I think this might be eligible for the tax credit as well. Let me take a quick look to double check here. Sorry, I'm doing this completely on the fly. This is as late breaking as it gets for this particular. Oh yeah. So it does qualify for, the Model Y's already did. I'm going a little nuts here. Sorry. So yes, that's still great that it qualifies for the tax credit, but it is 60 more miles of range for $2,000 more versus the standard range rear wheel drive that had been there before. So you love to see this. It's 320 miles, which is 10 more miles than the dual motor. So the dual motor is quicker, certainly, by quite a lot. So the long-range rear-wheel drive is showing a 0 to 60 of 6.5 seconds versus the all-wheel drive 4.8. So very significant performance difference, but most Model Y buyers are probably not too concerned about that. Model 3, maybe you get a little bit more performance-oriented thinking from customers, but 45, and then the tax credit brings you down right off the top to 37.5 if you qualify. 37.5 out the door for a 320-mile range Model Y. That is absolutely fantastic. Boy, that's great value for the Model Y here. That I can't not recommend that. At that point, I'm not even sure if I could generally, for most people, even recommend the all-wheel drive version. Paying $3,000 more for 10 fewer miles of range. Okay, you're going to do a little bit better in winter conditions with all-wheel drive, and your performance is way better. But yeah, man, that's a great value on that new long-range rear-wheel drive Model Y. Okay, let's do some phone calls in the Ride the Lightning hotline. If you have a question, comment, or discussion topic for the podcast, please feel free to call in. I welcome you. I invite you to do so. There are two easy ways to do that. Either use your smartphone's built-in voice recording software, record your question. Please try to keep it to 90 seconds or less so that I can get to as many callers each week as possible, and then email that file to me at my Tesla Podcast email address, which is teslapodcast@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can just call in and leave a message on the Ride the Lightning hotline. The toll-free number to do that anytime, day or night, is 1-888-989-8752. Again, that's 1-888-989-TSLA. And if you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more. We will start talking Cybertruck with Damon from Northbrook, Illinois.
Hey Ryan, Damon out of Northbrook, Illinois here. Curious if you think once they scale Tesla Cybertruck production, do you think the price will come down much? I would hope that would be the case. You often give the example of your Model 3 performance and how much it cost you versus what it is now, and how it's actually even more car now for way less money. Also, the original justification for those low prices was that Tesla was using very little tooling. They were using brake presses instead of heavy stamping, and there was no paint shop, and they were designing it from the ground up to be a lot easier to manufacture. Also, the 4680 batteries were supposed to be a lot less expensive. Once they start scaling those, I think that the numbers should come down. And I don't know. Tesla often drops the prices when they absolutely have to, but they have in the past done it when they are trying to just make a more competitive product and kind of swamp the market. I am also curious if you think the extended range battery pack is just vaporware. I kind of feel like if people can't even order it, that Tesla will do like they did with the $35,000 Model 3 and say, oh, not enough people ordered it and we're just not going to make it because the demand wasn't there. So, as always, really value your thoughts and look forward to hearing them.
Damon, hello. It's always great to hear from you. Well, what the recent past has really hammered home for me, to answer your question, is that once the Cybertruck has fully scaled up, and they're doing 5,000 Cybertrucks per week, 250,000 Cybertrucks per year, is that Tesla will price the truck exactly where it needs to in order to keep that run rate right at 5,000 per week and 250,000 per year. That, to me, is really it. That's it. That's the bottom line. Tesla does not want to slow down production until, I suppose, they're completely going negative on the margins, right? Like, as long as, I got to put an asterisk on that, I suppose, right? As long as there are margins, they're going to price it such that they're maintaining full volume production. Now, you're right that there are other factors, such as what the competition is doing, but it seems to me that by far the overriding guidance for Tesla pricing is not having to slow down production. And that means that for quite a while, I think pricing is highly unlikely to be reduced on the Cybertruck while Tesla works through the 2 million reservations. Are all of those going to convert to orders? Of course not. But even if, let's say, even pessimistically, a third, let's say only 1/3 of those 2 million orders convert, that's a very evil sounding 666,000 trucks, which is still a good 3+ years of production. Because you're talking 2 full years, 500,000, plus the first year, which is going to be 100 plus, it looks like. So again, 3 + 3 to maybe a little bit more than 3 years of production. And that doesn't take into account any single new reservation that Tesla has inevitably gotten and will continue to get in greater and greater quantities when people start to see Cybertrucks on the road more frequently and in Tesla stores as well. So I think a price cut is inevitable, yes, but I do think it's going to be at least 2 to 3 years away from now. And as for the range extender, well, you're right that if they don't get enough orders, they probably won't do it, and they'll just refund the deposit of those Foundation Series buyers who had put down a deposit as part of their order when they submitted it. We did just hear on the earnings call about how battery prices have gone down by quite a lot, though. So hopefully that's a good sign, if certainly I acknowledge not a guarantee that Tesla will follow through with the range extender. Next up, James from Orlando commenting on the robo-taxi.
Hey Ryan, it's James here, based in Orlando, Florida. I keep seeing all this news about the robo-taxi is its own car that's going to be announced. I remember when I bought my car in 2019, I think maybe 2020, Model 3, being told that all of these cars that we own would be robo-taxis, meaning there'd be a rideshare app that we could rent our car out. The car in the driveway would make us money. Whatever happened to that? Has that just gone away? Is that not going to happen? It was something I was looking forward to. Eventually, I didn't think it would ever happen, but now that they're actually talking about making a robo-taxi, I'm kind of disappointed, I suppose. Let me know your thoughts. I appreciate it.
Hey, James, well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Unless Hardware 3 proves to be not good enough for doing driverless rideshare travel, because remember that every robo-taxi will have at least Hardware 4, if not Hardware 5, by the time it comes out, there's theoretically no reason why your car and mine shouldn't be technically capable of joining the robo-taxi ride-sharing service, aka the Tesla network, as Elon had originally referred to it. I suppose we're going to have to wait until that robo-taxi unveiling on August 8th, Cybercab. I gotta reprogram my brain, Cybercab. The Cybercab unveiling on August 8th before we might get that key question of yours answered. So stay tuned on that, James. Thank you for your call. And I've got time for one more call this week. It comes from regular caller Brian in Pennsylvania.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate that. Wanted to talk about Drew Baglino. Maybe conspiracy theory here, probably not really conspiracy theory. That's not really the way this goes, but I highly doubt that he was laid off. If he's really with the company 18 years and did everything he did, that's not the type of person you're laying off. I wonder if he completely disagrees with Elon and the robo-taxi and not making the $25,000 car for everyday people, and that's why he's leaving the company. He did choose to leave because he disagrees strongly with what Elon is doing. That's my theory. Back to you, Ryan.
Brian, it's nice to hear from you. Well, you certainly could be right. We cannot discount that possibility. Now, we'll never know until if and when Drew decides to say that himself, but it is on the table. Now, regardless, I will say this. I wish nothing but the best for Drew, and I have to think that as the battery guru at Tesla, as I always like to call him, maybe he's going to find his way over to Redwood Materials to work with his longtime Tesla leadership colleague, J.B. Straubel, on battery recycling. That to me seems like, not that I know the guy, but that seems like a fairly natural fit for Drew, unless, of course, another EV car company makes Drew an offer that completely knocks his socks off, which, if you're Rivian or Lucid, you probably should make that offer. Just go ahead and just back up the Brinks truck to Drew's house and just start unloading sacks of cash, and he will make huge gains for your company. That would be what I would do if I was Rivian or Lucid. Anyway, thank you, Brian. Thank you to everybody that kindly took the time to call in. I promise you I will get to more of your Ride the Lightning hotline phone calls on next week's podcast. If you'd like to call in reacting to something that you heard me talk about or one of the other callers talk about, you can dial in one of the two easy ways that I talked about at the top of this segment. But I'm not quite done yet. Stick with me. I'll be right back with your pro tip of the week and a little bit more right after this. Well, we had a canine house guest this week. We dog sat for another canine companions puppy raiser. And it was actually the first time that we'd done that, because this community is so awesome. I have to say that every time I would respond to someone's post on our forum, our mailing list, it would be, that somebody else already said they would do it. So awesome community. Finally got to puppy sit for one of the other Canine Companions puppies. So it was my first chance to really compare apples to apples to Zelina. And now that we've, been through an entire puppy raising cycle, and this dog, his name is Riggs, and he is an absolute sweetheart. Way mellower than Zelina. Like, Zelina's higher energy for sure. Like, boy, this Riggs is just, which seemingly is a great temperament for a service dog. Like, I would think this is going to position him very well when he goes off for his professional training here very soon. But it was fun. It was fun to have him for a few days, and Daisy enjoyed having a playmate for a few days for the first time since Zelina got turned in. So that was a nice thing for us this week. Anyway, how about an entertainment recommendation? I'm not sure I've done one of these in a couple weeks. I want to recommend a new video game to you, and it is available on, I think, pretty much every platform. And that is Top Spin 2K25. If you like tennis or just tennis video games, because tennis video games you don't even have to like real tennis. Because Pong is tennis, right? Like, if you enjoy Pong, you'll like proper video game tennis. And Top Spin has been a franchise, a series that's been around for 20 years. And I've loved it going back to the beginning. I reviewed the original for the original Xbox back in 2003, just over 20 years ago. And the first one is great, and it's been a great series, but it was dormant. After Top Spin 4, there were no more Top Spin games for the last 12 or so years. And out of nowhere, a new one came around, and it's just out, and it's super fun, and I'm having a good time with it. It's got professional tennis players in there, or you can make your own tennis player and customize, like, put the skill points into power or speed or whatever you want to do. And so if that sounds fun, if you'd like a little video game tennis, you can't go wrong with Top Spin 2K25. All right, how about a pro tip of the week? It comes from Travis in Dallas.
Hey, Ryan, this is Travis in Dallas, Texas, and kind of a new listener to your podcast. Really enjoy the content. Was listening the other day, and you were commenting about how sometimes when you're driving and the auto steer or navigation gives you the warning that it's that the road conditions aren't great, and it keeps giving you that warning. Humorously enough, I got that warning while you were saying that. And I just tapped on the warning on the screen, and it took the icon bubble and shrunk it down and moved it over to the left, and it stopped beeping at me. I don't know if that was the case, like it actually did that, or if my conditions improved and it stopped beeping at me, because it wasn't raining or anything. It was kind of funny that I was even getting the warning. But that did work for me, so the next time I get that warning, I'm going to try it again and see if that works. But I thought I'd pass that along, give it a shot the next time you're getting that warning over and over again about driving conditions, and maybe that will help you. All right, thanks. Bye.
Travis, I really appreciate you mentioning this. I'm going to go ahead and optimistically count this as a pro tip, if for no other reason because I want you to be right so that there's a way to get rid of those annoying chimes. I will do the same next chance I get. In fact, there is rain in the forecast tomorrow. Like all morning it's supposed to rain. So if I've got the car out and I get that darn chime, I'm going to think of your pro tip, and I'm going to see if this works. So thank you so much for your call, Travis. And if anybody else out there has a good pro tip of the week that you'd like to share with me and your fellow Tesla owners and enthusiasts, please send it my way. And the way to do that is to call in on the Ride the Lightning hotline. I gave you the simple call-in instructions for that earlier in the podcast. And you know what? I was just mentioning this to somebody on Reddit today because they had asked, do you have any, I just got a Model 3, do you have any pro tips? And I responded, I figured I'd mention this here too, because I don't know if I've mentioned this, or if I have, it's been a long time. TeslaProTips.com. That is a website that was started by a listener of this podcast, Ramy from the Netherlands. I want to give him a shout out. And he just started collecting all the pro tips of the week every single week and put them into a website. I don't know if he's updated it recently, but there's a bunch of them there. If you're a newer Tesla owner or a newer listener, maybe you'll find that useful. So check that out. Thank you to Ramey, and thank you, Travis, for calling in with this week's Pro Tip of the Week. All right, time to get out of here, but before I do, I want to mention some friends of Ride the Lightning that my hope is they'll be of use to you sooner rather than later. They've all got discount codes for you, so here we go. AbstractOcean.com. Coupon code there is RTL Podcast, all one word. That'll get you 15% off of your first order. They've got all kinds of stuff from their custom fit tempered glass screen protectors for your big center screen in your Tesla to vinyl wraps if you've got the old style center console like I do, to lighting kits, interior and exterior, the puddle lights, just all sorts of stuff. Check them out. AbstractOcean.com. And again, that coupon code, all one word, is RTL Podcast for 15% off of your first order. The Snap Plate and Snap Plate Plus, available for 3, Y, X, and S. Get yours at everyamp.com/RTL. And there's a coupon code there as well, which is more recent. Thank you so much to the Every Amp folks for offering this discount code to my listeners here. That coupon code is simply RTL. So again, the website, everyamp.com/RTL, coupon code RTL. On top of that, this is the front license plate bracket that will snap on and off in seconds, but when it's on there securely. It's very minimalist. You can barely tell anything's there. The license plate's practically floating in front of your car. That's why I like it, because I don't want a big bulky thing up there. So check it out, everyamp.com/RTL. The Snap Plate is, if you're wondering the difference between the two, safety optimized with breakaway features to sacrifice itself in a worst case scenario, whereas the Snap Plate Plus is intentionally strength optimized with hardened features for maximum strength. Both are made from recycled, made in the USA plastics, with stainless steel reinforcements. Next up, BudgetSafeSolar.com. Check them out if you're interested in solar for your home or business. Keep them on your list, because you're certainly going to probably check out more than one solar provider. But BudgetSafeSolar.com did a great job on my installation here at my home, and they can do the same for you. They operate pretty well nationwide, so if you just go to BudgetSafeSolar.com and just click through there, reach out, check it out. Don't forget that they now do home battery storage as well. If you'd like that as part of your solar installation, they can do that for you too. If you do choose to proceed with an installation from Budget Safe Solar, I kindly ask that you use the referral code RTL. Next up, Immaculate Reflections, an awesome car detailer here in the greater San Francisco Bay Area. I guarantee you will leave happy if you bring your car to Immaculate Reflections. Check him out at irdetailing.com. You can also check his Yelp page, which is yelp.com/Immaculate Reflections. And you can check out his Instagram page as well. The handle there is Immaculate_Reflections. Whether you want to do paint correction, paint protection film on some or all of the car, ceramic coating, or some combination thereof, I guarantee you, again, and I'm actually being completely serious, I guarantee you will leave happy. Jeff McGovern is the owner and proprietor and master detailer at Immaculate Reflections. He's as great of a detailer as he is a human being, and he's a great human being. He's become a friend over the years here, and he's made my car look amazing. So can't recommend him enough. And he's got a discount for Ride the Lightning listeners. So if you bring your car over, there's a discount. All you got to do is reach out through the website, again, which is irdetailing.com. And when you set up your appointment, just mention that you're a Ride the Lightning listener, and that discount will be kindly extended to you. Finally, my Patreon page, which I know I mentioned a little earlier, but I want to mention it again here. This is the way that you can voluntarily choose to give back to the podcast. If my hope is that you get a lot out of this podcast, you get a lot of information, you get a lot of entertainment even from time to time, but some good insight, good analysis. That's what I try to provide here. And you can give back if you so choose through Patreon. And the pledge tiers start at just $5 a month. So for the price of what probably at this point is less than a cup of coffee. I don't drink coffee, so I don't know what coffee costs, but maybe less than a cup at Starbucks or Pete's or something. But anyway, for just $5 a month, you can give back to the podcast here, and in return, I will say thank you by offering you early access to each week's episode. If you see it in your heart to step up to that $10 per month tier, you'll not only get that early access each week, but you'll also get all 94 and counting of those weekly lightning round mini episodes that I do on Patreon. So head on over to my Patreon page to find out more and to sign up if you're interested. And the website again is patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. You can follow this podcast totally for free. This isn't a paid thing, but follow it on your favorite podcast service, which statistically for most of you is Apple Podcasts, which thankfully Apple Podcasts is now available natively in all of our Teslas. That's cool. So you can very easily listen to the podcast that way. And what following does is it means the new episode will get pushed out to you automatically. You don't have to think, wait, when is the new podcast? Sunday, I think? Is it? No, it'll just come to you anytime there's a new episode, which is every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. But follow me on Apple Podcasts, on TuneIn, on Spotify, or on YouTube podcasts as well. If you want to find me on any of those, the best way to do so is just to search Ride the Lightning Tesla Podcast. That's probably the most guaranteed way to go. And finally, I guess I won't even mention the referral code because Tesla has phased out the referral program for now. But I will mention my social media handles if you're interested in following me on either of those or messaging me on either of those. Same handle on both X and on Instagram, and that handle is DMC_Ryan. You can also email me anytime you like. My email address is teslapodcast@gmail.com. And before I go, I want to say a hello and a thank you to the upper tier Patreon backers. Tomorrow, as I record this, we're doing our monthly Patreon Zoom hangout for the tiers, the folks that I'm about to mention that are at this tier. So the Plaid, Maximum Plaid, and Roadster in Space tier backers get invited to this every month. The Plaid the Plaid folks are grandfathered in. That tier is officially not offered anymore, but I'll start there, in fact. So thank you to the Plaid level supporters, who are George Cassiopo, Logan Willis, Peter Chalet, Eric Randolph, Dory and Steve Guberman, the Tesla Owners Club of Taiwan, Ron Lee, Charlie Gillespie, David Perella, Dennis Peak, Jeff Angwin, Chase Cabanillas, the Lydia family, Aaron Altschul, Jared Brown, Jerome Strack, Jamie Dalton, Mike and Barbara from Louisville, David J. Howes, Matt Nixon, the Tesla Owners Club of Wisconsin, Ish, Not Elon Musk, Peter, and the Bear Boys of Colorado. Next up, a big thank you to the Maximum Plaid backers, Jonathan Wales, Cameron Clark, Daniel Grummer, Seth Capello, Nick and Tony, the Galpin family, Ryan from New York City, Darren Nickel, Kaz Barnes, Brett Libano, Patrick Wisniewski, Gil Cabrera, Todd Badger, Joe Edgel, Kevin Yank, the Tesla Owners Club of San Joaquin Valley, Michael Williams. By the way, I want to congratulate Joe, the president of the Tesla Owners Club of San Joaquin Valley, took delivery of his Cybertruck since the last Zoom hangout, the Patreon hangout from last month. Congrats, Joe. I've been seeing the Instagram posts. He is having a blast with it. Thank you as well to Todd, let's see, where I lost my place. Michael Williams, there we go. Will Stedman, Derek Nesselrote, Justin Perez, Jeremy Harris, Chris Beach, Tom Mills, Corey O'Donnell, Aaron, John Cody, Joel Sapp, Paul Casarino, Richard Corley. Oh, John Cody is, I think he's got his VIN. He messaged me. He's getting close to his Cybertruck as well. Joel Sapp, Paul Casarino, Richard Corley, Chris Osborne, KB, Doug Carey, James Gregory, Adam Lavoie, ContactOneCallCenter.com, Jason Chalukas, Travis Krenzel, Bruce Otterstein, Tom Behan, Josh Pennington, Matt Kalin, John from Cream Ridge, New Jersey, Sean Tisdale, Dustin Hart, Michael Gallo, Derek Finley, Charles Clement, and Rav. And finally, a big thank you to the Roadster in Space tier backers, Pete White, Lyle Austin, Steve Radspinner, Fernando Cordero, Lawton from Chicago, Sean Neidig, Neil Weaver, Jackson Wallace, Rolf and Jennifer Evers, Howard Anthony Smith, Victoria Iacovetto, Tesla Hitchhiker 42, Carol Weston, Robert from near Philly, Kristen Rumble, American Home Contractors, and GetAmber.com. And that will bring me to the end of Ride the Lightning episode 457. Looking forward to that Patreon Zoom hangout tomorrow as I record this. And just looking forward to getting out, driving my car this weekend, even though it's supposed to rain tomorrow. But we'll see. Hopefully the weather will still be relatively decent. But in any case, I should say, I hope all of you have a wonderful week, wonderful weekend whenever you're listening to this. Happy electric motoring, my friends, and I'll see you next week.
Elon Musk, people don't like Elon Musk. The guy founded PayPal and Tesla, and people are like, yeah, but he's a troll and a bad dad. I'm like, so was mine. He did nothing to fight climate change. Also, have you been in a Tesla? Have you been in a Tesla? My buddy let me drive his Tesla. I laughed out loud at how fast it went. Been clinically depressed my entire life, on dozens of medications, in a Tesla for 13 seconds, cured forever.
I mean, I think a Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be. Our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. It's maximum fun.